All right, let's stay with the theme of Freedom Day, today being the 27th of April. A lot has been spoken about and around the concerns, the issues and the need for the youth to come out and vote in the upcoming elections on the 29th of May. But if you speak to a number of youth groups, they feel there isn't a resonance when it comes to the older politicians. Many of them have said to us here on eNCA, they're not even sure who to vote for because many of the current political parties don't represent their interests. So let's get the thoughts then of someone who respectfully is younger. It's Ekta Somera. Now, Ekta is from eNCA down in KZN, but very importantly as well, is also a community mobiliser from Youth Capital. Ekta, good to have you on eNCA. I appreciate the time. I'm not sure if you had a chance to hear what the President was saying earlier. Did you hear anything about the youth? Do you feel it's a focus for the President? Good afternoon.
As a community mobiliser at Youth Capital advocating for policy change to youth unemployment, the President mentioned that this is a country where no one should be left behind. But 30 years into a democracy, young people are still being left behind.
Why is that? Why is it? It's 3 decades later, and you often hear this in speeches that youth employment, education for the youth, job opportunities. Are you telling me that you don't get a sense that actually anything is really different than, say, 10 years ago?
Well, growing up in a democratic society, young people have experienced both the benefits and the challenges. South Africa has one of the highest rates of unemployment, poverty, and inequality. Young people are the biggest demographic in South Africa, and while we have the right to education and to work, many of us still do not have the opportunity. In my community alone, there are many people sitting at home with qualifications and are unable to find a job. There are even more people who have not finished school simply because they do not have the means to. So I think the experience of young people is very different to that of our decision makers.
What are the pros? You mentioned pros and cons. There are things that have worked for the youth. There are things that have not worked for the youth. I'd like to touch on what you think has worked for the youth in South Africa and perhaps how we can take that forward.
Well, we have had public employment programs. We've had funding for that. And I believe that if we could have more, the youth would have more opportunities to gain working experience and social connections, which could help them further get better jobs in the future.
And the pro, and rather the cons, what's the biggest issue? You mentioned jobs. Is it the fact that there isn't enough training to get into the jobs? Is it not enough job opportunities? Is the education opportunities not high enough? When you say jobs, what do you think is the biggest sticking point?
Definitely opportunities. There aren't enough opportunities. As I mentioned, there are so many people with qualifications who aren't able to get a job simply because they don't have experience. A lot of jobs require experience, and just getting out of school, young people do not have the opportunity to work. So how can they have experience to get a job?
So where's the solution in all this, do you think? If you had it all your way, Ekta, how would you like to see things change apart from casting your vote on the 29th of May? What needs to change in your world that you want politicians to get on board with?
Well, we hear youth unemployment and we think it affects only young people, but that isn't the case. It also affects families, it affects communities and the country at large. We can hold campaigns and programs in our community to tackle the issue and to find solutions. But ultimately, we need structural change, which puts South African youth at the center. We need to place collective pressure on our leaders and to hold our decision makers accountable.
How do we do that if many people have been telling us on eNCA, and they have for a number of years now, that they don't identify with any of the political parties we have, despite them, Ekta, saying that they are going to be supporting the youth with jobs, with education, all those good things. Many saying that they don't identify with A, politics, B, the elections. We're talking about voter apathy for the youth. How do we change that if not through voting?
I think we need to speak directly to youth, like what we're doing at Youth Capital. We're engaging with the youth directly, so we're getting their opinions. We're empowering them to use their voice, and we're empowering them to use the power that they have to make a difference.
Then I'm going to ask you just very briefly, as I say goodbye, someone maybe still sitting on the fence, Ekta, let's again respectfully, the younger generation, they're not sure whether to vote or not. What would you tell someone like that?
I think you have to vote. It is your right that you need to practice. And I think looking as a young person in South Africa, you can see everything that is happening around you, and you cannot feel powerless when you have the right and the power to vote.
Ekta, I appreciate it. I hope those who are younger in age hear what you're saying and come out on the 29th of May as well. A lot of registrations, whether they pitch up on the day is a different story. It's Ekta Somera from Youth Capital joining us.